and of those of that content area. If you're an educator and if you've tried to do a refresher research course, and if you've ever tried to sit down and take the Texas matrix along with the National Registry matrix and put them together, they will not fit. They will not fit. There was a lot of discussion in trying to figure out how we could make that work. You're hearing people start to talk about other education options, direction, and I think that all of those have wonderful merit. This group looked at the best way to try to work with transition. And the group decided to do a couple things that day. We did have a quorum that day, so we were able to conduct business. Motion was made by Scott Mitchell to permit DSHS coordinators to document transition and content completion during their course. That is, if they have already been teaching the requirements, they need to document that on their course completion certificate. One of the things that we wanted to look at was some standard language. Instead of having to go back and redo this, as many programs have already been teaching the content, if you've been teaching this, we're going to ask DSHS to provide standard language that all coordinators can use to put that on the course completion certificate to reflect that that's already been done. We think that that's probably the easiest way to make it very easy for those people who need to document that. We want to make sure that it meets or exceeds the 2009 National Standard Curriculum. This was seconded by Lori Fevers, unanimous vote by the committee, and we'll be moving that language forward to DSHS for their approval. So to make it easier for you, if you're doing CE programs, when we're looking at transition courses, I think the greatest challenge for us is sometimes trying to get CE again to meet more than one need, whether it's state or whether it's national. We were trying to find a process that was going to work. When we look at recertification and the education that goes with it, we are probably still one of the few occupations that have more than one way to recertify. We have 5, 4 plus 1 if you would. And one of the things that, whether it's Fernando or Maxie or whoever the state rep is today, we are requesting some information from the state. That is, we'd like to know the frequency of use of the 4 plus 1 or 5 recertification options. We'd like to know how many people are electing to take the exam, how many people are using National Registry, how many people are using a research course, or how many people are using CE. Before we moved any further on trying to look at the best way to transition, we wanted to figure out which way was being used the most, and if we needed to address more than one of those areas. And if we have anyone doing CCMP, Comprehensive Clinical Management, we just kind of like to know by the next meeting and our May meeting how many people or what the percentages are, if one's being used a lot, if one's not being used at all, because I know that we've had those out there now for quite some time, just haven't heard exactly how those are working. So we're asking for that frequency distribution report of those areas. We want to then take those and compare those to the National Registry policy and those options to see if we can somehow get closer to helping personnel meet both CE options. And if that means some changes to what we're currently doing, then we might start to take a look at that option, which was actually the pleasure of the group. We also briefly discussed the topic of transitioning all Texas EMS professionals to NREMT. This did not originate in this committee. I believe it originated in cardiac, and cardiac EMS and medical directors are going to look at it today. We'll take a look at it later. Certainly if they need some assistance from this committee, we'll be more than happy to do it. certainly while requiring all EMS professionals makes sense to educators, I think it might be an extremely difficult sell at some point to say that everyone has to be nationally registered. Now, that's not to say, and everyone who was at that meeting, please don't be shy, in that we looked and thought, there's a way to do it. Again, not that we can't do it, there's a way to do it. And if that's a time frame of between now and 2020, again, if you can't get that done in 8 years, there's probably a problem somewhere. To make this next year, no. Year after, no. Some reasonable time length, because when we truly start to examine how mobile our society has become, when we go all over, you know, somebody calls, you know, when the Bastrop fires, people are moving. I know fire departments are even having to look at structural firefighting and wildland firefighting to figure out, you know, how do we maneuver, because there used to be a time we just helped our next door neighbor, and now our next door neighbor is anywhere. So we almost kind of have to take that same approach with EMS Ed, whether we go back to New York because of the 9/11, or we go somewhere because of hurricanes out of state, or tornadoes, or natural and man-made. We probably do need to take a look at some time of how we can help those personnel. So today, that is not our focus. It was not our focus the other day either. It is something that we decided we wanted to take a look at, and we'll do that through the other groups. Did I sum that up correctly from the other day? Pretty much. Okay. Comments by committee members? Any comment? Any general comment? Okay. We also looked at development of a checklist to assist coordinators in transition courses. As everyone knows, we're starting to look at transition courses to help meet the EMS education standards. During discussion, the committee decided that we would appoint a transition subcommittee to help us with transition objectives, the number of hours, the assessment, and the eval, and part of this will go with the 2009 gap analysis, which we approved and moved forward to GETAC, and they approved last meeting, to take a look at that and try to figure out how many hours per certification or licensure period that we needed. At that point, Ryan Wolford, who's director of EMS at Methodist, and Brian Erickson, who works for Jeff at Tarrant County Task Force, is going to prepare a report and present to the Education Committee at our next meeting at our work group in April on their recommendations for a number of hours for each group. Don't have a good feel. I can tell you it will not be onerous. When we discussed it, we're looking at a minimal number of hours, but just to make sure that what's in the new curriculum has been transitioned. When we have that April work session, it'll be our regular work session. Would invite each and every one of you to attend, want your input. I know Jake came up from Waco to help us, so that we have input from as many people as possible, but I assure you we want to make this as painless as we possibly can, and then we can get those things posted and over to DSHS for them to put it out on the website so we can go through public comment. Committee members, comments? None? No, a quiet group today. Any general comment? I'm not. 3 was Jerry Dinsmore. You here today? Hey, Jerry. Your better half had talked to me in the hall a while back about some clinical issues. I didn't see Jane, but I saw you here. Okay. She put a little GPS plan in you to make sure you got where you're supposed to be. Got it. There were some items brought up to the committee looking at loss of clinical sites through no fault of their own. And that's kind of an education issue, that if someone's losing clinical sites or difficulty in getting clinical sites. And I think we're all...
Clinical sites that we were wanting, that was our issue. It was ORs.
Jerry, if you're going to do that, you need to come to the mic. And while you're doing that, let me finish this one. In that this committee feels like if someone has an education issue, it's probably one that if we can vet it, we will. Even though that may not have been the entire issue, we do know that there are programs that are having difficulty getting clinical sites, internship sites. They have problems keeping them. We are hearing all kinds of things running around like they're charging for clinical sites. We hear that there's a lot of things going on, and that is a partnership that has to work, has to take place, because we can't have programs if we don't have clinical slots. So regardless of sometimes what we want to do, I think it's almost like, okay, hospital, clinic, whatever, tell us what you want and let us work as hard as we can to make that happen. So give us a little bit better idea of what Jane's concerns were, Jerry.
Okay. Our concern was specifically with ORs, although other departments are difficult at times. But the OR clinical sites, we have had problems getting into them. We have had loss of clinical sites because other programs did something and now they don't want EMS programs in there anymore. We have clinical sites that want to charge $100 a day per student to send a student into an OR. We were hoping for some help from the committee or the state in greasing the wheels and beginning a discussion between the EMS and the hospitals of what can we do to make this work, to open up access to these sites. And along those lines, PERCOM is commissioning a study. We will be contacting every level 1 and level 2 trauma center in the state of Texas and attempting to talk to the OR chief and ask these questions. What is the issue? Why, if you are not allowing students in, why, basically? And try to come up with an idea of what it is. Is it each individual site has their own reason, or is there a liability issue that's the majority of them say it's because of liability? No, you can't attack this problem without having the knowledge of what the problem is. We hope to have some information to give to this committee at the May meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Along those lines, this committee also looked back at the EMS Education Training Manual and wanted to look at the clinical objectives in the manual to make sure that those were a minimum standards and that we had updated those. And Lori and I looked and talked, and I know that this group went over the Education Training Manual. We spent days and times and we dissected that. What I can't find is, Phil, are you here today? Yes. Phil, did we ever get that to you? No. Man, it's not what I wanted to hear. Okay. Lori, will you email that file to Phil today?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. Phil, on behalf of this committee, please accept my apology because we thought we had sent that to you more than a year ago and wondered why we hadn't heard any response back, and we started looking and we couldn't find the emails where we'd shipped it to you. So I tell you publicly, blame our head, not our heart, to get that to you. After we did, the committee the other day looked and asking to add the new language to 15732, the accreditation of permanent programs. We added that into the manual, the language, and to that to give them some guidance. And we will make sure that you get that. You might get more than one copy, probably get a copy from Lori, a copy from me, and a copy from anybody else. But it will be the latest version that we took a look at. I'm trying to think. Mr. Boulder, help me out there. It's been a year and a half, probably?
It has, and I apologize for being a guest sitting up here.
That's okay.
But indeed, it's been a year, but we did look at it. And I have seen quite a few of ProCom's students at my workshops. in the cadaver labs doing their requisite intubations, et cetera. So it is a challenge in our area what he's bringing up. And in that manual that we need to send to you, Phil, it definitely addresses some of those challenges. So there's a mix between what they want to do and what we're asking them to do. And I don't know, is anybody from the Methodist healthcare system in the house today? So there are some systems who are even conflicting with other hospitals. But I mentioned to Dr. Billers here that I have concern for an individual company or school doing a survey of all systems, whereas I think the committee should take that on as opposed to an individual. So before you make any action, and I realize you can, I would respectfully request that you allow the committee to do a general survey so it is relatively palatable, because this is a really sensitive issue, and it involves strategy over tens of 20 years. It involves referral patterns for hospitals, and it's a big deal. So we just need to ratchet it down. I apologize for all those, but I had mentioned to Dr. Billers, if individual companies start, because there are all of us who have many stakes in this equation, but if everybody starts surveying, it's going to make it a much bigger problem, I think, than it really is. Do you agree, Dr. Billers?
I think so. I mean, as a coordinator, you want to know in your own area what some of the concerns. I would not say don't have communication with your clinical sites, but
Yeah.
You know, and I think for most of us, we also realize that sometimes it only takes one or two to start messing up, and we all get lumped in the same group, and before you know it, then we're all having difficulty finding clinical sites and finding issues. I know that we have certain clinical sites that require faculty on site while you have students there. I know for a lot of people that's not cost effective. I guess when we look at the other healthcare disciplines, whether it's respiratory or nursing or whatever, they have a faculty member on site while those students are there. You know, and I know that we have to police our own. Jerry, are you okay with us doing that?
Yeah, we're going to do it. That's fine.
Okay. We'll work with this group. Dr. Village, you know I'm going to look at you because you did such a great job on the 2008 survey. If we can put that together and time frame in April, we can look at time frame and structure and everything that we need. And I would recommend that we look at every hospital we have listed, if you don't mind, Jerry, not just the level ones or level twos, because we're going to all of them. And if we can find some common ground or a common theme or common issues from those, and if we can help solve those in a clinical setting from an educational viewpoint, I think that would be good.
Yes, if you want to contact every hospital all the way down to 4, that's fine. That's a daunting task.
It is.
The reason we chose level 1 and level 2 is because we really don't have problems with levels 3s and level 4s. They seem to want to work with us a lot more than the bigger hospitals. So if the problem lies with the bigger hospitals, we thought that's where the survey should lie.
Sure. You know, I think you might have less issue, and I'll tell you, having worked for a level 2 trauma center for 14 years, is that we're accustomed to having students. We have students constantly. Having said that, sometimes the issue is having students constantly. Okay, and you have all the way down from residents all the way down, sometimes a level 1, because everybody wants to come to a level 1, 2. Everybody does. And that's what I said earlier. Sometimes it might take one student from one school who just at the right time. So whether we need to address this from a clinical objective standpoint, background, uniform, performance, evaluation, it's a daunting task, but you know, I think with electronics we can put that out there, and if they respond, fine. If they don't, then they've had an opportunity to. Any other public comment? Okay. We added the verbiage to the accreditation manual for current standards of accreditation. Bill will get a copy of that too. We were also asked as a group to start looking at individuals who are teaching CE. And this is, talk about daunting. Members of the committee wanted to look at who's teaching our personnel. This has nothing to do with accreditation. This has to do with every piece of CE, from EMR, first responder, ECA, all the way up to medic. We just kind of want an idea of who's teaching so that we can direct some activities that we have to help them, to give them some assistance. Do we have first responders teaching first responders more often? Do we have EMTs teaching first responders more often? Do we have paramedics teaching first responders more often? I know that the higher you go, sometimes the harder it is to teach in that discipline, because if you're a medic and you're trying to teach an ECA class with a time frame of 60, 66 hours, it's almost impossible for you, simply because your knowledge level is different and you forget you're doing a first responder class and you want to share more, and it takes longer. We just kind of want to know, so we've asked Jeff McDonald and James Shiplett put together our second subcommittee that they're going to look at CE and look at the education courses, just to see who's teaching at all levels. Again, this has nothing to do with accreditation at all, and get back with us. Believe it or not, again, those workshops work fairly well for us. We've got some agenda items set for our April meeting. Group, anybody want to take a look at their calendars and start looking here while I keep yakking about one more thing about a meeting in April? Last meeting was in Saxe. We have tried not to travel as much as we have in the past, unless we've got some big, huge issues, again, that came out of everyone's pocket. So we're trying to keep them a little more central. We're not trying to leave anyone out, but trying to keep the funds back so that when we have something big, if we really need to go on the road to teach and educate, we can. Committee, as you look sometime in April, we will have the natural registry item. We will have the instructor item. We will have the survey item on our agenda, and anything else that we deem necessary. Keep in mind that in order to meet the requirements of the state of Texas and the Texas Register, we have to have items in to DSHS for approval, agenda items, 45 days before a meeting. So it's not, I know people call me and they send me emails, can you put that on this agenda, and it's 3 weeks out, and I go, I'd love to, but I can't. So we kind of set these early in advance to get those moving forward. I've had talks with 2 or 3 of you in the hall over some other issues. I see a couple of you in here today. Know that we've taken those and we're talking to some folks about that before we put those out for public comment. It wasn't on the agenda, so it's kind of hard to do today, but I just wanted to let you guys know that whatever you bring us, we're always taking a look at. Committee, what's your pleasure in April?
Any weekend but the 20th for me.
So 6th, 13th, or 27th?
And I'll offer Austin to host if anybody.
13.
Dr. Gonzalez? 13th?
Yeah. 13th, good for me.
13th work? Okay.
We know how.
It's Friday the 13th.
Do we have another conflict? Is there some big meeting going on somewhere that?
You know that's Friday the 13th, right?
Okay. You know what, Jeff? I've ridden with you.
You'll get us there.
If I can make it through that Friday the 13th, it won't be too bad.
9 o'clock here? Or at Service Center, Jeff?
Let me look
Well,
here.
depends on if Jody, that's where Jody wants to put it. I'm offering Austin, but if there's another place, I'm good with that too.
I'm just looking to. Okay. Friday, April 13th, 9 a.m. Mr. Hayes, where?
Learning Resource Center,
That's right across
Right
the
across
street.
the street.
Okay.
unless something changes, that'll be what.
It said 9 a.m. at the Learning Resource Center, which is right next door to this building. If something changes, we will let you all know. Typically, DSHS will have this posted at least 30 days. That's why we have to have it in 45, at least 30 days before the meeting. So if anything changes or any agenda items, we will have those. Wow, 31 minutes. I love it. Any comment from committees members on anything on the agenda?
Phil is gonna have that review done by our April workshop, correct?
Laura?
Jody, just a reminder about the comments that were made about the National Registry for all licensees. That our mission from the Education Committee is really focused on helping those who initially gained their license through National Registry retain it. That's the focus, is how do we help them retain it, rather than forcing those who don't have it getting it.
That's a very good point, and that is that, again, before rumors start, we're not saying everyone needs to be national registered. We're just saying for those people that want it, how can we help you get it? For those people that need it, how we can direct you to help you get there. Any public comment on any agenda items?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yesterday at the Stroke Committee meeting, we proposed to have the state look at adding stroke recognition, anatomy, physiology, some other things to be considered for continuing education hours. We made a proposal, and we just wanted you to be aware that we did make it. I won't go into all the particulars at this point, but I will be available to recite what we did yesterday.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dudley, good morning.
Good.
Hey, for that joint meeting today, please come and participate. This came up, and I know y'all may have heard this before, but this came up back in August. It was mentioned, I think, at the cardiac committee meeting. Just somebody asked a question about why or why not does that not happen. And it kind of grew legs of its own after the GETAC meetings, and so it came up to several on the EMS committee. And so we talked about it in November and really determined that we really couldn't have a legitimate discussion on it without the folks who had originally brought it up, and then medical directors were involved in that as well. And it was purely an oversight not to include you guys, but please come and participate in that education. It's essentially just discussing pros and cons. I don't know if anybody really has a push either way. It's an interesting discussion, I think, and I like the position y'all just stated about helping people maintain it. You know, I obtained my national registry back before it was, I guess, I don't want to say the thing to do, but it was hard to find, which was nice because it prevented me from going to Oklahoma, and I went to Florida instead, which, by the way, I don't know if you ever compared Oklahoma and Florida when you're 25, single, and fresh out of college, but Florida's the place to move to. Anyway, so it enabled that to happen, but I got my national registry, and I've maintained it. But I think it's a choice for folks, you know, and anyway, I don't want to get into it here, but I want to encourage y'all to come to that discussion. And then the other thing from the EMS committee's perspective is there are a number of organizations in Texas that do encourage their employees to maintain their national registry. And with the bridge things that have to happen to do that, there are a number of EMS providers that are extremely interested in those courses and what those requirements are going to be. So as y'all get that work product in draft form and you think you've got something that you're going to go final, if you wouldn't mind letting us know, I promise you we'll look at it quick, we'll get it back, we'll offer some constructive feedback just for y'all's benefit. But there's a number of organizations that really work to help just like y'all's mission, to help make their folks maintain their national registry. This is going to have an effect on. And so we'd like to have just a chance to review that and give some providers that are coming to the EMS committee a chance just to review that and look and give thumbs up, thumbs down, make some suggestions on it as well. Just like we did on the GAP thing. I think that worked really well.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Dudley. Any other public comment? Anything from committee members? Need a motion? GK, how are you? I'm fine. Good.
Hello, I'm GK Sprinkle, and today I'm just representing myself as an EMT, and I'm wanting to urge that the CE be more general, I mean in terms of the categories you have to meet, than have it broken up into these many different kinds of CE, stroke CE, whatever CE. It becomes like you need calculus to figure out how to get your CE. And I just think it would be better if there were certain things that you absolutely knew you had to have, but you offered CE at the conference in stroke, and it fit into one of these categories. I think that would be a good way, because it'd be something I'd be interested in going to, but to try and figure out how to do it, you might end up taking something that was inappropriate just because you had to have hours, when you could have something that you really felt was interesting and it would fit into other categories.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, GK. Any other public comment? Committee members need a motion to adjourn? Yes, sir. Uh-oh. I tried, y'all. I tried.
Yeah, every now and then I have something to say. First of all, I may have missed it. I did have to leave out the room. But I want to remind everybody that the conference is moving this year. I want to keep hitting that home. This year you'll be able to plan and roast those turkeys without having to rush home after the conference to get it done. The conference will be on the, I lost my cheat sheet here. It's actually November the, I think, 10th through the 14th. Oh, I lost my cheat sheet, but here it is. The conference is 11th through the 14th, with pre-conference being on the 10th and the 11th. So I want to make sure everybody understands that, because the current magazine have different dates. And I want to make sure everybody understood that it was a difficult decision to make that change. It was a very difficult decision, actually. But when you look at what's planned for Austin during that time, I'm on TV, I got to take these glasses off. It was a difficult decision, but the things that they planned that's going on in Austin at that time would just make it very difficult for our organization and our people to be here to compete with those car drivers and stuff. So I want to make sure that everybody understood. And it is a one-time thing, because we were able to take advantage of some of the discounts that the hotel and the conference people they were going to give us. So you will notice that when you go make your rooms, they are a little bit cheaper than they would have been last year or during the regular period. If you've already made your reservations, don't fret. The hotels are going to change them. And if you have anybody have any problems at all, call Kelly. She's not here. I'll give you her home number. No, but I do want to make sure that word gets out. We're trying to get it out as best we can, and I want to make sure everybody understands it's a one-time thing that we will have to go back to the week before Thanksgiving, because that's when they do discount the real rates where we can afford the rooms and what have you. Lastly, I want to make everybody aware that I try to get out and talk to the stakeholders. That was one of my big things when I became state director, is to get out and hear what people have to say. There was a time I worked for an organization, there were people that sat high and they never looked low or walked down the stairs to see what was going on in the basement, in a sense, or on the streets. And I want to make sure that I stay somewhat in touch with everybody and what's going on. It is difficult. Also, I want to make sure that everybody understands where we're going with basically transition courses, the accreditation, all this stuff. But more importantly, I want to give everybody an opportunity to ask questions and even throw stones. I will have a bulletproof vest on, so you better aim high. But we will make our rounds, and there are 10 cities, I think we're coming to. I don't have the list in front of me. We will publish them. They are out there. Actually, we sent it out, I think, the other day, so you all should be getting that notification. We're going to do 10 cities. Yeah, I'm going to be a rock star for a while. But I do want to hear from everybody, providers, educators, the average EMT that don't understand what NR is requiring and stuff. This is the time to come and ask those questions. And we're going to do our best to get everybody answered and stay as long as we can get there to answer everybody's questions. So don't be shy. It's a takeoff from the conversation we had at the conference. A lot of coordinators. We had over 100 and some people there, which was a good turnout. And I plan to do the same thing around the state because there are some things that you all need to know that we're doing. And just as importantly, I want to know what you all are doing and some of the complications that people are having as it relates to EMS. So if you haven't heard, then let us know, and we will get that message out. It'll be in the magazine, I know. We sent an email out, I think, yesterday or the day before yesterday, so y'all should have gotten that email. So if you can't make it to one, make it to the others. If you can't make it at all, just call me. We can talk. Oh, that's right. Brett's here. Call Brett and ask him.
I've got it.
To everyone who takes time out of their life and their schedule to educate others in the healing arts, thank you. Motion to adjourn?
Motion. Second.
All those in favor? All opposed, same sign? We're dismissed. Thank you very much.